Thanks for joining us on Next Level Up. Today's guest is Robert Priest. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Viscus Biologics. It's a medical device and biomaterials company specializing in natural polymers and FDA-cleared devices that restore tissue to a durable, healthy state. Robert's been at the helm at Viscus since its early days. He's been building systems that take a product from concept through FDA clearance and then to scaled manufacturing. It's great to have you with us, Robert.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good. All right. So let's go before we get to Viscus a little bit. What brought you into the space? What was your journey to get up to the point of kicking it off with Viscus and what you're doing today?
Oh yeah, that's a fun story. So I went to college for mechanical engineering out in Illinois, and I was always a car guy. I figured I'd do something related to the automotive industry, and I ended up coming back to Cleveland, and I got a job with a. Long story short, I ended up getting a job with Steris Corporation up in Mentor, Ohio, which
Yeah.
was not huge at the time, but growing. And I ended up staying there for about 16 years, working in their R&D group. Did some
Wow.
project management, some product development, some software projects, things like that. But really, that's where I got into medical device space. I didn't even know, coming out of college, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know
Yeah,
that
right.
medical device companies need engineers. And okay, and so I ended up staying there. I ended up learning the regulatory environment, learning the right way to do things. And that's kind of how I got into the business. Eventually, I went to take a position as director of engineering at a company called Coltine, just a little south of Cleveland here, which is a dental products company responsible for manufacturing, engineering, product development, quality, regulatory. So it was an expansion of my knowledge and experience there. And I decided I wanted to take everything I learned and go do something different and say, hey, I want to see if I can, if I've learned the right things and I can do this. And so I ended up getting introduced to the CEO at Viscus, and he hired me on, and we've grown it from he and I to about 19, 20 employees now.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great. I had a fraternity brother who was at this Cleveland Institute of Art for industrial design. Same thing. He wanted to, drew cars since he was 6, and then ended up going to step 2 and making toys for kids, 3 to
Right.
7. It's like you never know. You don't know what the actual future, and he loves it, right? So it's pretty cool that I thought you were going to say biomed engineering, and here you are, a mechanical engineer. That's cool.
No, no, mechanical all the way. I was the kid taking things apart, looking under the washing machine, trying to figure out how it work.
That's cool. Well, and now you're a biomed engineer anyhow, so full circle.
Right.
So talk to me. So what's the current focus at Viscus? It sounds like you're growing, which is awesome. That's why you ended up here. It's all
hmm
about what the next stages look like, but what's the day-to-day look like at Viscus for you?
Day to day is busy. We are making that transition from small company to medium company, medium to large company, if you will. Uh, you get to that bend in the hockey stick where you make that transition, and there's a lot that changes. We're trying to build business. We're trying to have enough cash to support the business. We're trying to assign responsibilities of all the employees to do the things that need to be done. When you're a small company, you see a ball rolling down the hallway, you pick it up and you do something with it because there's no one else to give it to.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of balls rolling around right now. And I've got people that I need to be like, okay, you're responsible for the red ones and you're responsible for the green ones. And that's a transition in culture and in management and just everything that we do, kind of going to more specific roles and focuses. But you need to do that in order to be successful as we get more things going on here.
Yeah, 100%. I remember predictable success. I'm trying to figure out who Les McCown, he talks about, like, to your point, when it's easy, it's just the balls. And then all of a sudden you get them, and he calls it whitewater, where it's just like,
Yeah.
it used to be simple because, you look around and you're wearing 7 hats because there's nobody else. There's no other head around you but the CEO, and he's already got his 7, to really breaking that down to process and building systems. And I get it.
Yeah.
Is that your number one chore, or is it the cash flow and just building business? What's your biggest hurdle right now?
Yeah, I think my biggest hurdle right now is how do we manage the systems and the responsibilities to get things done. I came in here and kind of the agreement I had with the CEO is that, I would keep the lights on and run the shop, and he could go off and do business development, and he manages a lot of the financials and other things like that. So that's how we divide the duties, if you will.
Yeah,
Uh, and so, yeah, I have to make sure things are getting done.
yeah, I get that. And how many of the levers do you think are still yours to pull? Or are you
Oh,
gaining delegation capabilities and strength?
yeah, we've got some people, but it's a matter of what they're doing. The challenge in a leadership position is, at least for me personally, and I guess a lot of it's what your philosophy is. I've seen way too many people where it's just like you burn people out. Do this, do this, do this, do this,
Yeah,
and I'm aware of that with the people that I work with, and so I try not to just dump on them everything that comes through because there's a lot of things. I have to filter it, I have to prioritize it, and so I keep a lot of it just to protect them to some extent, uh,
yeah,
and also to help prioritize and have them get focused. Because if they don't have focus, they're not going to get anything done. You can't give people 18 things to do and expect them to get all of them finished on time.
yeah. I was like, I hope you only want 6 of those done.
Right, right, right. So I'd rather have them focus on five or six, and then I'll try to manage the other ones and bring them in as I can.
What kind of difficulties do you have? And I would imagine, there's two main other problems as you grow, right? Is how do you keep the vision from getting diluted with the growth? Well, let's start there. From where you guys started, the two of you, I'm sure
Mhm.
you had a pretty good idea of what the vision of the company was. How are you finding that with, again, adding new people, bringing them into that culture, et cetera?
Yeah, I don't think the vision has we I don't think it's changed. I don't think we strayed from it. Our focus is to do services for people to help them bring their ideas to market and then to help them deliver on that and produce those products. And and so those two sides of the business are still our focus. Wound care, natural materials, collagens are still our focus.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's really just expanding in the right places, expanding in the looking at what functions, what processes we offer, what value we add, what knowledge we bring to our customers, and making sure that we're staying in those areas. There's a lot of things that come up and somebody will come up and say, hey, I've got this product or that product, can you make this? And we've had to decide, is this within what we want as far as volume and margin?
Yeah.
And and we've turned away a couple. Um, we had one that we almost turned away but didn't in the end, and we're glad we didn't because that ended up being pretty successful for us.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, uh, but I think the thing now with that is we're looking at scale. We've always been a small company and we've always been lower volume, higher margin products. And hey, we want our customers to be successful, and some of them are becoming successful, and they're saying, hey, we need to make more. Or I've got new customers coming in saying, I've got these big grand ideas and I think I'm going to sell a whole ton of stuff. Can you do this for us?
Yeah.
And so scale, I think, is something that we're really starting to look at now, in all seriousness. How do we do that? Um, it's a process intensive business that we are in. You put something on a machine and it runs for 2 days or it runs for a week or whatever. And it's not like I can just add 10 people and speed things up or get more capacity in a lot of areas. So I have to buy equipment, I have to buy
Yeah.
things, and so, how do you plan out for that? How, as a small company, do you finance that without over leveraging yourself? And
Right.
so those are the things that we're trying to be smart about as we're developing the budgets and the business plan, and what does tomorrow look like? What does 5 years from now look like?
Yeah. I thought was really intriguing about you guys. You're not only the IDO of medical devices and supplies, but you also actually implement that, right? You're actually building the
Mhm.
stuff, which is, I'm not saying that you're a unicorn by that, but it definitely is impressive to see that you guys can handle both those pieces. And I get the concern around financing, leverage, cash flow,
Yeah.
right? How do you do all that without, you know, adding the bank, not breaking it?
Well, and that's the thing with small businesses. They always talk about small businesses outgrowing their cash before they outgrow anything else. So you have to manage that. We had a not so great year last year, and when you don't have a good year as far as sales go, you get a little bit behind on the cash stuff, and then that takes a long time to recover from. And
Yeah.
so we're real sensitive to that aspect of things and making sure that we manage it appropriately. And that was a kind of a beacon just to say, hey, these are the things you got to watch out for. A lot of people talk about the cost of quality, but that is real, not only from the standpoint of what good quality gets you, but bad quality or other business problems can really hurt you in the long run. And it's not just a one-time thing. I mean, it takes a while to recover from that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the situation where one of my clients hasn't paid for a considerable amount of time. Same thing, and that's the economy we're in right now. Like, with the political stuff and everything else,
Yeah,
you don't know. Like, I had that stuff booked, and then when it doesn't show up, you're like, uh-oh, now
right.
what? You're scrambling. I get it. So, ask a question. So I talk about dilutive culture, which sounds great that you haven't had that problem. What about anything around? I wouldn't say sacrificing quality or compliance, but I would imagine one of your hurdles is keeping that up, right? Because this is not something where, you make a bunch of widgets and if a couple of them
Yeah,
fail, not that big a deal, right? It doesn't look good. Customer
right.
be pissed. You're talking about medical, like, I mean, this is things that are life giving, life saving, healing stuff. Like, how do you manage that?
It is a challenge. There's a lot to it. I mean, as you said, we're a medical device. We are registered with the FDA. We are ISO 13485 certified. And so between those two things, as well as just ethical standards of knowing that we have to make products that are going in people's bodies, we can't sacrifice on the quality side of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of paperwork. We've gone to an electronic quality management system to try to reduce some of that, to try to streamline some of the processes. I think that's helped. We've implemented an ERP for planning, but that's not really the quality side of things.
Yeah.
Uh, and we try to build awareness and manage training. I personally, I allow people to make mistakes because we're all human. We all do it. I make mistakes,
Yeah.
but we have to make sure that we have systems in place that those mistakes are caught and that you don't repeat them. You learn from them. One of my favorite questions I ask people when I do interviews, just to kind of get a feel for who they are, everybody makes mistakes and you learn from them. So I like to ask people, what do you think was your best mistake? What do you think is a mistake that you've made in your professional career that you learned the most from? And I always find I get really interesting answers from that. But
Mhm.
I try to bring that philosophy in with the employees too. Just say, hey, have you learned from this? Are we not going to do it again? You do it once, maybe you do it twice. I'm okay with it. You do it 5 or 6 times, we have to have a conversation because
Yeah.
now not only are you affecting productivity, you're putting people at risk, and we can't have that.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I say the same thing around, ignorance is just the lack of education.
Mhm.
It's the time that you do that mistake two, three times. Okay, maybe now you're maybe leaning towards stupid, not ignorant. Like, it's like we've had this conversation. Like, where are you missing the
Yeah.
gap? Yeah, I got it. And I really appreciate you for having that attitude. I do really try to look at it's feedback, not failure. And sometimes that's hard. Like when
Yeah.
you're on the front lines and you make a big enough mistake, it's hard to sometimes rationalize and wrap your head around that. But I like the fact that you give the space for that.
Well, and in all honesty, mistakes and quality issues, things like that, 99% of them are preventable. And that goes for most things in life. You should be able to prevent things. It's just a matter of how many controls you have in place, how good are your processes, how good is your paperwork. And hey, we're not a 50-year-old company with 3,000 employees. I've got somebody who's focused just on this thing and making it better,
Yeah.
and we're trying to do all of that at once. And so as we grow, as we learn, we're getting better step by step, and hopefully we eliminate the causes of those things as we go. which then reduces the load and allows us to focus on more important things.
Yeah, great. And obviously, AI is like top of every news article now, but
Oh yeah.
any use, have you guys found use for that? Is it just ChatGPT answering questions and doing research and stuff, or is it not
Yeah.
quite a fit yet for you guys?
It's one of those things that I'm starting to look into. I'm talking to people about it that are working with it and getting a feel for how they use it. I don't have time to be bleeding edge on this technology, and I'm going to go just figure it out. I need to learn from the experiences of others here.
Yeah,
And I think there's two parts of it. One is obviously the whole data security component.
yeah,
What do you put out there? What trade secrets are at risk? You don't want your competition getting access to how you do things and why you do things and all of that.
right.
But then if you can get over that, then the question is just, can I use it to do more than just tell me when is the store down the street going to be open?
Yeah,
Is it more than just an enhanced talk back to me type of a Google search? And I think really, we've used it to create some basic forms for interviewing and things like that, and learning about basic tasks it can do. But I think really the two things I'm looking at, one is how can I use it to improve some of our training programs?
hmm,
My wife is a teacher and she showed me one of their AI tools that they use. I believe it's a subset of one of the Google products.
hmm,
And basically, there was a paper that they had to do professional development on for some of their coaches, and they put this paper in and they told AI to give me a podcast of two people talking about this paper, just like you and I are doing right now. And
yeah,
it generated an audio podcast of two people all excited talking about the topics that were in this paper. And then she said, well, I want something that's video. And so it did something similar, but it did it to slides. So there's
yeah,
a PowerPoint deck in the background, right? So I like to, we bring people on board, and anytime, we talk about quality in the medical device industry, and there is a lot from the standpoint of procedures and regulations and things people just aren't used to that they need to learn coming in here. And if you never worked in the medical device industry, I mean, that can be overwhelming. And so you don't want to give somebody a stack of documents this thick and say, sit down and read this for a week, because their
yeah,
eyes will fall out of their
yeah,
head.
right. It's a
you,
good,
you have to have some interaction, and we don't have a lot of people. I don't have dedicated trainers, and the manager's got to be out there managing the people. So I'm looking at how can I use AI to build some onboarding materials, build some training materials for me. Yes, it has to be vetted. I'm not going to 100% trust it, but if it can do 75% of the work and I can proofread it and tweak it, and then I have something that I can use, one, I'm going to have better outcomes. I'm going to have happier employees. I'm going to have more successful employees that get running
yeah,
faster, and then my time is better spent doing other things also. So that's something I'm looking into. But really, I think the other part of that is this agentic AI,
yeah,
where you can have agents that actually go out and can access things and do things. And I think that's really what I'm looking at. I can see a lot of value in it for me personally with some of the things that I want to do. And maybe we can figure out ways that it can work for the company as well.
yeah, cool. Yeah, AGI is definitely, I think, the promise. Everything else is cool, does some cool things, and I've used that same tool to do the podcast, which is definitely a cool way to consume data. The other nice thing is it gets you out of the tribal knowledge thing, right? Now you got a knowledge base you can start building to
Hmm.
for new employees, et cetera, which is really great. I'm a
Yep.
developer and developers hate documenting, so anytime it can help us do that for people that weren't the ones who wrote the code, it's definitely a
Right.
in the right direction. All right, great. So casting that out a little bit, let's look ahead 2 to 3 years. What do you think success looks like, and what are you guys doing at Viscus? How's things playing out in the future?
I think we've got a lot of irons in the fire as far as projects. We're doing a bunch of business development. We've got clients that we have proposals out to for projects. We have we have some projects that we have completed or near completing and are in for FDA submission right now, that then would be translating into, our production side of the business here in the next year or so. So I think it's that momentum. Any kind of a project portfolio, you have the filter of things that come through, and eventually you get the good
Yeah,
ones out the end. And it's nice to see that we're starting to get some awareness. People know who we are. People are calling. We're starting to, get these different proposals out there, and starting to get more in the pipeline to get to that sustaining revenue that comes from manufacturing as well as the services model.
That's awesome. What do you think is the biggest obstacle to all that? Or is it still the systems and everything else?
Well, it depends on which side you're talking about. I think on the front end where you have the services, with that, we need to prioritize. With that, it's uh, how agile can you be?
Yeah,
I get a new project. I have an engineer. I get two new projects. Do I need to hire another engineer?
yeah,
I get five new projects. How quickly do I need to hire an engineer?
yeah,
In that, everybody knows that is not, I just go out and find somebody that knows biomedical and tissue engineering next week.
yeah, yeah,
That's a process, and there's a cost to that.
yeah,
Um, and oh, if I hire an engineer and then projects go away, right? So bringing them in at the right time, I think that's part of it on that side of the business. We've got decent project management. I've got a dedicated project manager. We've got people that know what they're doing. We've built up good knowledge base. They work together well as a team. So I'm not worried about that.
yeah.
It's just how do we bring people in to manage the customers, and do those things. And then on the production side, really it's process and investment. A lot of what we do is manual. Um, we need to start investing in some things to scale up a bit, some automation, some things to make things faster. It's funny, you talked about focus, and the focus of the business really hasn't changed as far as what we want to deliver, the value we want to provide to the customers. But the things we have to do to provide that value have changed a bit.
Yeah,
When we were doing lower volume, we were making things, and some of our products that were higher volume, we were sending out to another company to package for us.
right.
And we decided we have the resources to bring that in, and we brought that back in last year. Now we're packaging ourselves, but we have other products that are higher volume that we're having to package. And all of a sudden we're finding that, hey, our area of expertise is not only just the tissue processing and the collagen manufacture. We've also got to be really good at packaging things, putting things in pouches, sealing pouches, boxing things,
Yeah,
labeling things. you know, didn't even think about that aspect of the business, right? And all of a sudden, this is something that's very important that we have to properly resource and manage and all of that. And so that's something that in the past year or two has been a big focus for us as far as growth.
yeah, it's great. Usually good problems to have. Sometimes they turn
Yeah,
out not to be, but definitely growth. What is the old saying? The rising tide lifts all ships, right?
that's right.
So it's great, Robert. Just a great window on what it takes to not only build a compliant business, but one that actually can grow without cracking the foundation. Really appreciate sharing lessons you've had and a little view behind the scenes, and can't wait to share this with our audience.
No, it's great talking to you. I appreciate the time today.